So after finally getting into the Marvel Rivals beta and spending about 15 or so hours with it, I can safe to say that this game is a blast to play. As someone who has over 1,300 hours of Overwatch, and that is my main multiplayer game to go to, Marvel Rivals has the potential to become my main go-to multiplayer game, provided the developers look at the two main issues I have with the game currently, which I'll get to later on in the video. So what's the positives? Well, the positive of Marvel Rivals is, well, it's free to play, and it's an Overwatch clone. It's a third-person 6v6 hero shooter set in the Marvel Universe, and it plays exactly like Overwatch for the most part. The game modes are exactly the same as Overwatch. You have similar things like play of the game, sprays, emotes. Obviously, because this is a free-to-play game, it will feature a battle pass and in-game store. But everything here looks and feels like an Overwatch clone set in the Marvel Universe in third person. And that's not a bad thing. As someone who loves Overwatch, I had smiles on my face playing this game in my first match in. And that's great. That's what you want to see. Now, the bad news, if you don't like Overwatch, there's a very good chance you're not going to like this game because they are similar in how the core concept is. If you've never played Overwatch before, well, this might be the game that gets you into that type of genre, not necessarily Overwatch itself, but the genre, because you might be, as you guessed it, a Marvel fan. And that's where this game's going to have legs. Because when you have a game like this, set in the Marvel Universe, which is a very popular universe, and you have great, fun gameplay, you have a recipe for success long term. Graphically, I love the art style. The art direction of Marvel Rivals is fantastic. Fits the comic book style of Marvel very well. I do like the audio. I do like the characters. I do like the styling. And I like the way it plays. A lot of it plays really, really well, especially when you perform combos with teammates. For example, my favorite character was Storm. She's a duelist, which is aka DPS. And when you combo her with, for example, Doctor Strange Ultimate, which stuns anybody in range, you combine that with Storm's Ultimate, which is a huge whirlwind attack. Well, guess what? You're going to obliterate enemy teams over and over again. The game is a blast to play, and it's, again, just like Overwatch in this regard. You have three roles. You have a Vanguard, which is the tank. You have the Duelist, which is the DPS. And you have the Strategist, which is support. All of these things are very, very rudimentary. The game does a good job of explaining every character's abilities. You go into the character's screen where you see all the heroes that are available, and you can see a nice little highlight. You can see all the cosmetics, but you can also see examples of how the ability can be used. And they even have, just like Overwatch, a training range where you can take the character and try it out before you go into a match. All of these things are good things. There's a lot of good things here about Marvel Rivals. It's fun. It takes me back to Overwatch 2016. That's literally how it feels like. And for me, that's great. But as I said, there is two things that hold this game back from, at least for me, taking it to be my main multiplayer game and from it being the next step up above Overwatch. The number one issue is obviously game balance. One of the issues I have with the balance is the game rewards certain team compositions where you get bonus abilities or passive abilities that can enhance your squad. However, the issue is that if these aren't balanced properly, then you're going to have everyone playing the same squads all the time. On top of this, there are also individual heroes which are significantly weaker than others. Currently, the strongest characters in the game are flying characters. Spider-Man's also very strong as well. Venom is very strong because both those characters can swing around the map freely. Storm is very powerful because she can fly and she can buff her teammates with either a speed boost or a damage boost. So certain characters, it's hard to pick one over another because that's how strong the difference is between certain characters. And then when you combine that with, as the aforementioned, team abilities, there is some really overpowered compositions and combos that you can do in the game, and there's nothing you can do to stop it in most cases, unless you have Adam Warlock, who has the old school Mercy Res ultimate where you can bring everybody back to life. Aside from that, yes, there is no counter to anything like that. The second issue I have with Marvel Rivals is how the game feels. While it is a very fun game, mechanically, it feels soulless. It feels soulless in the sense that there's no feedback. Virtually every character's primary weapon gives you no feedback, regardless if it's a ranged character or a melee character, when you hit a target. You get the icons that you're hitting them, but there's nothing really there. There are certain exceptions. Punisher, for example, his weapon feels pretty good. And I know Scarlet Witch gives you a little bit of like a multiple tick feedback when you're hitting a target as well. But for the most part, you feel nothing. And this also translates to abilities and some ultimates, where you feel nothing. While the ultimate visually is a standout and makes a big splash and then you get the kills and it looks great, but it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel the same way as if you do a Genji Dragon Blade. Or if you do a big Earth Shatter and you stomp the enemy team. Like, you don't get that same feeling. You know? Versus like when you do a Widowmaker headshot and it feels crisp. There's no feeling, there's no feedback. And because of this, as you're playing the game, sometimes you can feel like, oh, am I doing anything? Am I making an impact? Am I doing any damage? Am I doing any heals? Just because you're not getting feeling. You see health bars move, but you don't feel it. So in turn, it makes the game feel soulless. And because it feels soulless, over a longer duration, yeah, people, might be like, this is not for me, etc., etc., and that's fine. I'm a firm believer that Marvel Rivals is a good game overall, and it will obviously have a fan base because it is Marvel. But in general, these are two big things that would stop it from being better than Overwatch. As it stands in its current state, Overwatch is still a better game. 100%. It feels better, and it's better balanced. Although not very much better balanced, but better balanced nonetheless. The big advantage that Marvel Rivals has over Overwatch currently is the fact that it's Marvel. Plain and simple. And when you come out of the theater like I did, watching Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, I want to play a Marvel game. I want to play a comic book game. And when I have this installed, it's like, yeah, I want to fire it up and start playing. Sure, there's no Deadpool or Wolverine in the game currently, but it's still a comic book game and a Marvel game. And that aesthetic cannot be overlooked. And a lot of Marvel fans will dig this game 100%. But overall, I think this game has a lot of potential. I like the visuals. I like the audio. I like the variety of Marvel characters. There's a lot of characters that you may not be familiar with in the game already, which is nice. Plus, you do have some familiar favorites. But overall, it's a solid game that has a bright future. But these two things, both balance, which is usually an ongoing challenge for any multiplayer game, but the more important one is the feedback. The feedback is going to be the challenge. Can they do something with the game engine? Can they do something with the mechanics to give players better feedback so that when you do things, not only does it look pretty on screen, but it feels good when you're doing it as well. Aside from that, it's a great game. If you have access to it, by all means, give it a go. I know they're routinely giving away codes. The game will be free to play when it launches. But if you can, give it a shot. It's definitely worth it, especially if you're a Marvel fan. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.